YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back after Sunday's action in NFL Week 1. And it was a Week 1. You know, random things happened, and people are overacting, and I'm here to break it all down, give you my takeaways, what I liked, what I didn't like, what it means going forward every single game. Except for the Thursday game, we had a separate video for that already. And Monday Night Football is tonight. We'll have you covered on our Twitter. Make sure you check that out. A lot of thoughts, NFL news, talking during live games on there. Check out the BetQL app. Link down below. Link down below for anything you need. You see it on your screen. It's down below. Like, subscribe, full NFL coverage. We got weekly picks, power rankings, score predictions, a lot more. Join us for all that. Here's our Twitter. It's how you join our Picks League. And again, a lot of updates, a lot of injuries, unfortunately. We were talking about a lot of the thoughts I'm going to have in this video already. We talked about it on our Twitter. But starting with the first game, we're talking about from Sunday's action. The Eagles dominate the Falcons 32-6. I'm glad I picked the Eagles. I did not think they were going to dominate this way, though. We always try to identify because Week 1's weird, tells us nothing about the rest of the year. Is this the Eagles? Are the Eagles really good, or is it just Week 1? Are the Falcons really bad? Is it just Week 1? It's always tough to tell, but I'm kind of the spokesperson of don't overreact from Week 1, but I'm trying not to overreact for the Eagles, or I'm trying not to get too hyped, because it's a team I want to get hyped about. It's a pretty sneaky team. I've talked about that in the offseason. I love the way Jalen Hurts played, and I don't know if that really happens by mistake. Sure, you can gain teams. Really, there isn't a game plan for the most part early, Week 1, and that's why, you can't really have an identity on teams. But I don't think you play like that and it's a mistake. I don't really think you improve like that and it's a mistake or a fluke. How different he is from the Oklahoma Jalen Hurts, which was good, but didn't really feel like an NFL quarterback. He's a lot different. He's come a long way already, limited starts, the way he wants to be a pass-first quarterback, the way he steps up in the pocket, avoids pressure, getting better against pressure, which was the key there. Every aspect I think he's improved on. Again, it's only 1 week, but I'm impressed. I love what I saw from Jalen Hurts. Just being a pass-first guy, handling pressure, maneuvering around the pressure, knowing when to stay in the pocket and throw, knowing when to get outside the pocket, throw on the run when he needs to. I thought that looked phenomenal. Pretty accurate throws, making throws where only his target could get the ball. It helps that his targets improved. They got a lot better there. See Devontae Smith scores first touchdown for the Eagles. That's awesome. Goddard gets in the end zone. It seemed like he was protected. And that'll be a key. The Eagles' offensive line staying healthy as the season goes on, because that's something that's been a question before. The pass rush did its job. We knew the pass rush would be good. I thought, Ridley was getting open here and there, but, I thought the secondary locked down their guys. You see the linebacker unit improved. Eric Wilson was all over the field. It seemed like a good pickup. Only Week 1. Again, I'll keep saying that throughout this video. But I'm impressed with the Eagles. I love what I saw. In-game adjustments, game plan adjustments when necessary from the coaching staff. The Falcons start off pretty strong. You see the Eagles adjusting, I think mainly on the defensive side, but also offensively, making sure they finish drives, making sure they get the points, because it was kind of close. Even though it felt like the Eagles were on top, they were dominating this game or close to dominating this game, they went out there and adjusted to make sure they dominated this game, and that's a struggle for some teams and some staff, so I do like that from the Eagles as well. I'm really trying hard not to get hyped on the Eagles, because it is one game, and history every single year shows that you cannot base things off Week 1, but it's definitely something to get a team to get excited about here after just to be happy about how they played and the promise of the future. So I did like it. Miles Sanders, forgot to bring up. I liked the way Miles Sanders ran the ball. I liked that they were getting him the ball outside. In the past, I saw a little bit of hesitation in his game. I think they were calling the correct plays to get him going. Overall within the offense. And I think they did that. So I was impressed. I'm trying to figure out what I'm impressed most with. I don't know if they didn't get a ton of sacks, but I think the pressure was great. But my point where I was getting to, I should say, is I was already going to be happy with this pass rush. So where I'm actually impressed, Jalen Hurts, the staff, Miles Sanders, it's tough to pick one. That's a good thing. The Falcons, Man, it was a rough game for the Falcons. I was getting worried about the offensive line. You guys heard me talk about that a lot. That was really, you think the Falcons, what worries you the most? The defense probably. No, for me, it was more the offensive line. And looking at, if you didn't watch the game, look at the scoreboard, you'd think the defense was the problem. I don't know. They got to move the ball, put points on the board, help their defense. I think the offensive line played a part. They couldn't protect Matt Ryan. His escapability is not there, obviously, as well. It's just, and I was a lot of things I was getting worried about and again, it's week one, can't base everything off week one, but it kind of showed. Like, this is supposed to be a run-first style offense, but with Matt Ryan and some good weapons, but to get, I guess make that run first to open up the pass work, you need a better running back. They kind of settled with Mike Davis, refused to draft a running back, and they ran pretty well early, but as soon as the Eagles adjusted, there was a script for the Falcons. There was a script early, and the no huddle, up-tempo, it was working. It was looking beautiful, but then you only get a field goal. It's like, all right, I was actually getting worried at that point. Like, the script doesn't work. The script works, but doesn't fully work. It's, we got points, not the end of the world, but usually it goes downhill from there, and that ended up being the case. So as soon as they were off the script, it was pretty poor job all around. Defense didn't have too much help, but they struggled with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts a tough game plan early on. With his legs, early in the season, it's a pretty tough game plan. So I don't really have too many takeaways from the Falcons defense. They could have played better. They were put in a tough situation. It's a tough game plan. So when they actually have a game plan throughout the year, which usually happens for every NFL team, week one compared to the rest of the season, it ends up getting better. So I don't really have a problem there. It's actually more of the offense. So not a good look for the Falcons, Arthur Smith and co. Week one, again, the way I always tell people to stay positive, even though it's a down week, is just say it was just week one. The teams get out of that, dig themselves out of it's not even a hole, after that. Doesn't mean they for sure will, but I guess that's the way to stay positive here. Next game, Steelers-Bills. The Steelers pull it off here. The more I think about this game, and we're going to give the Steelers a lot of credit here, but I want to start with the Bills. The more I think about this game, the Bills had no business losing this game. They really had, and you look at the Bills' problems from last year, not many because it was a good team. Usually good teams don't really have too many problems they got to work on, but you look at those problems, and it's only week one, but we're talking about week one here. Those problems are still there. And that is on the offensive side of the ball. Can they establish a run game? And I keep saying this, I don't need them to run to open up the pass. I don't need them to establish a run game first. Don't need that. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, high-powered passing offense in company. They don't need to run to open up the pass. But you got to run the ball, and it's even worse when running. Things like this start to get me mad. They get me upset here. When the running game is working and the offense really is not, and you insist on throwing the ball, the Bills were leading most of this game. They were winning most of this game. And you insist on throwing the ball 51 times when it's just not working. I understand when you're down. When you're losing, all right, we got to come back. We can't run the clock. Understandable at the end of the game. Nothing's working on offense. The passing game isn't working because the Steelers' defense is ridiculous. We know that. And whenever you do decide to run the ball, you wouldn't know it. Singletary had a pretty damn good game. And run blocking was good, and the Steelers, as good as their defense was, it felt like you could run the ball. And they insist on passing. This is a poor game from the staff. I mean, the more I think about it, they should have won this game. They could have won this game. The block punt for a touchdown, the punter held the ball way too long. Stupid mistakes. And it's something, but I guess stupid mistake there. And it's like, all right, week one, they made stupid mistakes. They didn't do this right. We'll get out of it. And at the end of the day, the Bills will get out of it because they're a very good team. They're going to be good. But these are problems that I still worry about, that I don't know if they'll go away because they kind of refuse to, to use the run game. And when it works, it's kind of annoying, And then really there was just two problems. That, and on the defensive side, they couldn't really get to the quarterback last year, and they added quite a few pass rushes. I think they can improve that over the year. It's just week one. They can improve that over the year. But, a revamped Steelers offensive line that's supposed to be worse in terms of pass protecting, it does not look good on paper, and they really couldn't get to Big Ben. I know he's getting the ball out pretty quick, but a lack of pressure. And overall, the defense played well. They were shutting down the Steelers, but then, in the second half, They let the Steelers kind of clutch up and make those plays. And, what is usually when that's the case, what is it? The lack of pressure, lack of hits on the quarterback. So it seems to be the same problem. The Bills, really the way I look at it, just looking at the Bills, I'm going to give the Steelers credit. Just looking at the Bills, there's no way they should lose that game. There's no reason. Josh Allen did not play good. He's put in a situation where the great defense knew he was passing every play, so it's very hard to play quarterback if that's the case. He's holding on to the ball too long. It does seem like, he's pretty easy to let go of the ball there in terms of the fumbles. That seems to be carrying over as well. The Bills are a high-powered, very good team, but teams are starting to, maybe start to catch on to them. They got to change things up a little bit. They got to tweak things, be unpredictable a little more. Their system's very good in the passing game, but you got to have more here. So, I'm not thrilled with the Bills. It's just week one. Again, I'm not saying the Bills are going to be bad now. Probably some idiot out there will come up with that. It's just not good. At the end of the day, it's not good, but they'll be fine. It's just to get over the hump when they play good teams. They were so close yet so far from the Super Bowl last year. They got to fix those things that continue to be problems. So we'll see if they can do that years goes on. Steelers defense, ridiculous. I mean, it's not really a surprise. The Melvin Ingram won't really show up. If you didn't watch the game, if you look at the stats, you'll be like, he didn't really do anything. Wrong. Melvin Ingram he did what he does. He does what I can't say it. He played his game. It's exactly what they needed. They were going to miss Bud Dupree, that type of player. They go and get Melvin Ingram. The guy creates for his teammates. He's lining up everywhere, kind of getting in Josh Allen's head, and that creates for his teammates. And his name really won't be out there. The TJ Watts well deserved. He's a ridiculous player. But Melvin Ingram deserves some credit there. Overall, it's a great defensive performance. Some people worry about their secondary because it's not the greatest on paper. They were pretty damn tight in coverage. It was ridiculous. Offensively, they were a little underwhelming in this game. It kind of took a blocked punt, which is what the Steelers do, though, in a score for obviously on it and to get them going. But when the Steelers offense kind of needed to clutch up, when they needed to extend the drive, they needed to get the first down, I thought they did. I think they did a good job there. They kind of turned to, it still feels like a very similar offense as last year, a lot of one-read quick plays. It was working down the stretch when they needed to clutch up. Najee Harris was a little disappointing, and the Bills kind of game plan for him. They kind of knew that the Steelers were turning to a run-first team. So they kind of shut him down a little bit. Not too many lanes to run, but he was hesitating too much for my liking. But I think he'll get going. Offensive line protected overall. It was weird. They protected better than expected, but they didn't run block as good as we expected. Just week one, though, that those things can definitely change. But, Steelers defense will win them games alone. I think they got help from the offense, special teams in crunch time there. So, again, Steelers defense will win games alone. Steelers will win games alone on defense. And if you factor in games that they could have some success on offense as well, they can win a lot of games again. So this is a big-time win. You get out here with a win against the Bills. I don't think this is one of the, in terms of the Steelers, we try to identify who won just because it was week one and week one's random. The Steelers were the underdogs. I don't think that's really the case. They won because they played Steelers football, and they can win any given week doing that. So that's kind of my take there. So it's a big-time win for the Steelers. Vikings and Bengals, before I whine about the overtime call that I disagree with, I really disagree with how the NFL handles it. That's what I should say. I will say this. The Bengals outplayed the Vikings in regulation, and they deserve to win the game. That's for sure. So the Bengals went out there, and they won the game. It's definitely something to be excited about. You go out there and get a win in week one with the young team that has promising future. What I liked from the Bengals, interior defense in terms of pressure. It's a big-time game changer. Quickest trip to the quarterback forces the quarterback to do things he doesn't really want to do. A guy like Kirk Cousins is kind of the scramble, get outside the pocket, and they got a ton of pressure. They only got 3 sacks, but it felt like a lot more. They were hitting them like crazy. They were getting a ton of pressure. That was huge. And so interior of the defense, interior pressure, but stopping a run as well. I thought they were phenomenal, just closing the gaps, filling lanes, and stopping Dalvin Cook for the most part. He had a couple good runs, but he had to get outside to do that. So I thought that was a phenomenal job. Joe Burrow made plays when he needed to. I wasn't one worried about Jamar Chase. I was very high on him as a receiver. I liked the pick there. People were panicking because of preseason. He had himself a pretty good game. That deep ball down the sideline for a touchdown is just Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. That's LSU. That's some LSU. We saw that over and over again. We saw it. Jamar Chase would dominate the man coverage on the outside, and LSU and Justin Jefferson would dominate the zone coverage. It's exactly for Joe Burrow, and that's exactly what that was. The Vikings were in man coverage. Jamar Chase took it to the house. Joe Burrow saw it. They read it. You love to see that because that connection, it's more than just a connection. It's more of just understanding what the defense is giving you as a young unit. So that is great for the future. Joe Mixon looked good, especially when he was getting outside. He was understanding when he needed to get outside. So he's a very talented back. When he got outside, he was creating. He was extending drives because of that. And I thought that I know Burrow got sacked a bit, and it was starting to happen a little more. They held Danielle Hunter in pretty good check. I thought he would come away with 2 sacks. He had 1, but the pass blocking wasn't good, but at least, they did enough maybe. They did enough. I know they gave up 5 sacks, but hold down a guy like that. I thought there's something positive you find there. Defense was kind of forcing the Vikings to be in 3rd and long situations. The Vikings had some success on 4th down, but when there was times where they would force the 3rd and long, force the 4th and long, so they couldn't really they couldn't do anything because of that. So that was huge, I thought. The Vikings, just the pass protection is the storyline. Kirk Cousins was, when he was able to throw the ball, even under pressure, he was throwing the ball well. He was hitting Thielen. Thielen had a good game. Jefferson, there was some drops out there, but Jefferson got going later in the game for sure. So it's just hard to find. They struggled to move the ball sometimes, but guys were playing well. They had explosive plays. So you try to figure out what it is. But it's really the Vikings. It's just one of those week 1 things, hopefully for the Vikings' sake. But, the schedule only gets tougher. That, it's just really sloppy. They had an insane amount of penalties and penalty yardage. Insane amount. You can't win doing that. You cannot win. They were the right calls, too. They were holding the crap out of the Bengals. Ridiculous. And they were still letting Kirk Cousins get hit. So that's not good. That's definitely not good. And that resulted in them being 3rd and long and 4th and long situations, an insane amount of those situations, more than you should have in a half of a season. So, so that you can't really win doing that. Defense kind of gave up chunk plays. I thought in the short yardage situations or majority of series, they were good, but they would give up chunk plays. One guy would get beat, blown coverage here. On the outside, they're letting Mixon kind of get outside. It does feel like the defensive line, they improved it big time, but it felt like it's really good for interior things. Who's containing the outside, who's holding the ground the outside. So maybe Bengals, Mixon, and company kind of exposed that a little bit if you're going to try to find a weakness of the Vikings defense, perhaps. But the Vikings just got outplayed in regulation. That's why the Bengals won. Bengals did a good job. I talked about the things I like from them. Overtime, at one point, it really felt like the Vikings, it was either they win or they tie. Clutch last drive to send to overtime, by the way, and field goal. It really felt like they were in position to either win or tie. And then you have the Dalvin Cook fumble. And I'm not going to talk about specific. It kind of brings up, but I think the problem with the NFL as a whole is first it looked like they didn't know what to decide. Do we call this a fumble on the field or do we call this down by contact? They kind of had a discussion. They didn't know, so they didn't know what to call on the field. They decided, I see a Bengals guy has the ball in his hands. We're gonna call that and we'll review it. Whatever. And they review it. And I know it's like a blurry shot, but you get a shot of Dalvin Cook with his ass on the ground with the ball in his elbow. You get that shot. Now, what you can't understand, what we don't know, is if the ball is loose or not. We don't know that. So, and my problem with turning to, I think they assumed that the ball was loose just because they called a fumble on the field. That doesn't make sense to me. In college, they get it right for some reason. In college, they always get it right. The way I look at it, we see the running back on the ground with the ball in his elbow. What we don't see if it's loose or not. So we have to go by what we see. We know he's on the ground with the ball in his elbow. So if there's not enough evidence, it should go that the runner's down. So I think the NFL is backwards on that, and they kind of decide too many games with that. Not just this game, with all of that. And the Bengals clutched up, went down there and won the game. But again, I can't stress this enough. The Bengals outplayed the Vikings in this game. There's some bright spots, bright future, and they deserve to win this game, no matter how overtime went. So that's my take there. Worried about the Vikings offensive line. It's same old story as usual. Next up, we got the 49ers and the Lions. Man, 49ers scored 41 points. They're dominant through three quarters. You think, okay, it's a great day, right? It ends up being a bad day for the 49ers with the injuries. I don't think they'll miss Mostert, depending on that injury. I don't think they'll miss him too much because they're very good with their running backs. Jason Verrett's already out for the season, and you worry, it's kind of a theme for the 49ers. You worry about the other guys now. So you have injuries at the end of the day. Allowing the Lions to come back. I'm not a big guy like, they scored at garbage time. It doesn't count. BS to me. I understand the point of scoring late in games while teams are kind of in prevent sometimes, but that doesn't mean it's a good thing. Throughout the whole game anyways, if you didn't watch the game, you won't really realize the Lions actually moved the ball pretty well. They just kind of couldn't execute in the big moments. The pick six was a big play for the 49ers. It was a gift from Goff. He kind of blindly threw that one. They weren't getting as much pressure as they normally do. Goff usually couldn't score or do anything against the 49ers with the Rams. Now he's able to move the ball. It's week one, so maybe it's just a week one weird thing. I thought he was able to move the ball pretty well. He had some bad moments against the 49ers defense with the Lions, so that's pretty interesting. I talked about hyped up Swift in terms of in the passing game, catching the ball. We saw a beautifully designed slip screen that went to the house. We can see some more of that. I talked about that. So 49ers, they looked explosive overall. They had some pretty stupid mistakes, which isn't good, but they still scored 41 points and dominated majority of the game, even with the mistakes. Trey Lance came in for a play through a touchdown pass. I don't really, it's pretty cool that his first play is a touchdown pass. That's cool. I don't really have any major takeaways from that other than that, though. Deebo Samuel's getting going. They did have some fumbles there offensively for the 49ers as well, but he got going. Ayuk was surprisingly kind of, Sherfield had more snaps than Ayuk. So what the reason for that is, I don't know. Maybe it's just a week one thing. They played the Lions, would save some stuff. We'll go with that for now. And maybe the defense gave up some yards and points because it was week one. Maybe they'll buckle down. We see that every year from every team and get a little more physical as the year goes on. So, of course, that could be it. But the 49ers, at the end of the day, they scored 41 points. They dominated three quarters. They got out there with a win. That's what to be positive about. What to kind of wonder is the injury concern and can the defense give up bigger plays than we're used to in the past? They don't have Salah. It's kind of a question. It's not a fact because it's just week one. It's random things happen. Random things did happen in this game. Weird things happened down the stretch. The Lions actually had a shot, and the lock of the week was the 49ers minus 7.5, so that got a little scary. But it's just one of those, all right, we got out there with a win. We scored a lot of points. All right, move on to the next one. That's kind of what it is. The Lions, Jeff Okudah injury, that's not good. It's really not much takeaways from the Lions besides, I thought Goff really clutched up, looked good. He wasn't able to do things against the 49ers his whole career on the Rams, and now he was able to move the ball with the Lions. So that's pretty interesting. Just a future team, and that's kind of what the takeaway still is here. So that's really it for the Lions there. Niners, I'm already looking forward. Tough game against the Eagles next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. But maybe it won't be. Maybe week one just lied to us. We'll see. Next up, Cardinals and Titans. The Cardinals carved up the Titans in this game. Cardinals, I talked about last year, going into last year. This can be a good early season team, and it looks like the case this year. And now what we're all wondering is, unlike last year, can they stay consistent and put it together the entire year? That's what we're all waiting for here. But we know this is a damn talented team. Even though they're why they're a good early season team is because it's such a tough game plan. It's a very tough game plan. But they play a very good team in the Titans on the road, who kind of has the formula to cause problems for the Cardinals. In my opinion, they kind of had the formula where they should be able to run the ball against the Cardinals, and they should be able to throw the ball against the Cardinals. And the Cardinals has kind of made that not real, non-existent there. So that's where the Cardinals kind of get on your radar, like, okay, this team could be for real this year. Chandler Jones had 5 sacks. 5 guys don't get that in a season. Does that mean he's going to continue to get that? Well, next week maybe when he plays the Vikings offensive line, but no, it doesn't mean he's going to he could break the record, who knows, but that is ridiculous. A ridiculous game. 2 strip sacks, actually. One resulted in them being on the 1 yard line, which ended up in a score. And, not to mention the Cardinals were a little sloppy early. I mean, not as sloppy as the Titans. Titans, it was, very early. It was Titans extremely sloppy, but the Cardinals is pretty sloppy with the penalties, and they're still putting it on the Titans as well. So that, you don't want to be that sloppy, but to overcome those things and to keep putting it on the team, pretty good. Kyler Murray you see how important buying time is for a quarterback in the NFL today's era. He did that. He made some ridiculous plays. The interception was bad. One play. He made some ridiculous plays. The receivers made some ridiculous plays. Hopkins, they were understanding that we need to get over the top. The Titans last year were really struggling underneath. They were leaving too much cushion. And so you would think kind of going in this year, all right, let's do that, right? The Titans, that's how we beat them. And people make the mistake by saying that because it's a different Titans defense. It's a whole different year. And I thought that was a great job of the Cardinals of kind of adjusting, Kyler Murray adjusting and realize what would be open. They were doing the opposite. It's a different Titans secondary. It's a different Titans defense. Let's beat them on the deep ball. And I think they went and did that. I love how they adjusted and recognized that, not just stick to one thing, not just stick to things based off the pass. That was fantastic. Oh, yeah, Connor had some tough runs, too. It almost like Connor could be running back one, which I know everyone was stretching. It could be Edmonds, but Edmonds had some explosive plays. I like getting him the ball in space, passing game. Murray was just big time. I mean, some ridiculous throws, off bounds. Sometimes you get a little scared with the off bounds throws, not the proper footwork, but it just looks ridiculous when it executes, and it executes pretty well. Defense clutched up. I mean, they stopped the Titans with the run from the start. That was the key. That the absolute key in this game, and I always try to find things that'll go unnoticed, and here is a gem of one. You look, Kyler Murray, outstanding game. He's going to get a lot of credit, and he should. Chandler Jones had 5 freaking sacks. He deserves all that credit. Guys don't get that in the season. But the key here, the Cardinals came out and stopped the run on early downs. The Titans and Derrick Henry is a run-first team, run to open up everything, sometimes only run to dominate. And they came out and stopped the run and put the Titans in predictable situations. Defense is a guessing game when the offense has to pass because it's 3rd and long, the run's not working, or we're up by big points, all of the above. It's pretty easy to play defense. So they did a great job putting themselves in that situation. So that was actually the key, and that'll kind of go unnoticed. And people are probably talking about it. Derrick Henry didn't get a lot of yards. That's kind of the focus, I guess. But, yeah, the Cardinals coming out there and stopping the run. And that kind of brings me to the Titans. I'll say, I wouldn't, how do I put this? They were very sloppy. You saw Julio Jones dropping the ball. There was another drop touchdown at one point as well. Julio Jones with a bad penalty. Offensive line, that didn't feel like Titans' offensive line. Is it that their new offensive line? We'll wait and see. But there's things that in the coaching decisions weren't good. Right before half, they had a 2nd and 1 at one point, and they just kept trying to air it deep, and I don't know what the hell that was. And unprepared, defense, the guys look unprepared. And sometimes that's just a week one thing. They cut down the slop, I like to put it. They stop being messy and they become more prepared. That's understandable. There's such a long list of those things, though. So that's a little worrying, but I guess I don't expect that to happen. It could happen next week. I don't expect that to happen for majority of the season. But here's my problem, and it's the same problem that kind of held them from getting over the hump maybe last year, and it kind of happened again in week 1. Now, when that happens again, I can't go, just a week 1 thing. No, it's a problem, and that is when a team figures out how to slow down the run, can the Titans get out of that funk? Can they win? Can they adjust their game plan? Can they come from behind when they need to? Those things continue to be a problem, and that was the problem here. The Cardinals came out there and shut down the run. Titans were sloppy. They did uncharacteristic things. But the Cardinals, I think, and you could say the Titans kind of put that on themselves, but the big picture, the Cardinals went out there and stopped the run and made big-time plays. The Cardinals did that, and the Titans, they got taken out of the game mainly because of that. I know the sloppiness is separate, so that's kind of my worry for the Titans. We'll see if the Cardinals can continue to do this because that looked pretty. It looked pretty. Next game, Seahawks and Colts. It's kind of a weird game for the Colts. Like, what's the takeaway here? Like, Carson Wentz, I thought, threw the ball pretty well. There wasn't enough explosive plays, I suppose. Just really couldn't get things going. It's really what the storyline was there for the Colts. Here's the week 1 question. Here's the question after week 1. We're not used to seeing the Colts allowing the quarterback to be pressured a lot. Carson Wentz wasn't pressured an insane amount by all. There's a lot of other teams their quarterback got pressured more, but we're not used to seeing the Colts quarterback pressured much at all, and we saw it. So is it a missing Costanzo? Remember, they're gonna get Fisher back, so that'd be big. So we could say missing Costanzo or Fisher. Was that the problem? It wasn't really the Colts offense line out there, and that forced him to get pressure. Or does it come with the quarterback? Because Carson Wentz, last year people will bring up Carson Wentz was pressured a lot last year. A lot of it was on him holding on the ball too long and taking sacks. And I noticed that a bit in this game. There was time, not every time. There was times where he held on to the ball too long a bit. So it was a little bit of both, and we're left here questioning. And people will probably answer the question in the comments maybe, or they're already answering it. There is no answer yet. We're going to have to wait and see. Is it the quarterback? Is it the offensive line? Is it all of the above? Again, this is one of those teams that lost, and I don't think there's panic. Colts lost to the Jags last year, so they know week 1's weird. Not that I think this game was weird. But they're going to get Eric Fisher back, and the offensive line should be better. That should give Wentz some more time. The question is, will he continue to hold on the ball too long? Will there continue to be a problem? So there's definitely no panic at all here with the Colts. There's just some questions that we need to have answered here coming up. Jonathan Taylor really couldn't get going. Running game really couldn't get going. The Seahawks run defense is still pretty stout for the most part. But the Seahawks, I should say, had a lot of collection of random guys getting pressure, so that's good for them. Questionable for the Colts. No explosive plays. They couldn't kind of extend drives. It's just weird. That's kind of the takeaway for the Colts. So questions left to be answered there. Defensively, their safeties had a brutal game. The Colts safeties, out of place. Is that a week 1 thing? Kind of just getting torched. We talked about the Colts ran a lot of cover 2 last year, and they couldn't really go into this game running the same thing because Russell Wilson would beat it up. And they did switch it up early. They were running more man, and they had safeties on man on some guys, and they're just getting torched. So they were kind of trying to switch it up, which I can't really argue with. A little bit they were trying to switch it up, but too many explosive plays. And I thought, early the Seahawks were moving the ball, scoring. Tyler Lockett had a beautiful touchdown, beautiful job tracking. Russell Wilson trusted him, just read the man coverage and just put it over there. Just beautiful job all around. But I felt like for a split second, the Colts adjusted a little bit, and they were like, okay, we figured it out. Let's adjust our defense, adjust our coverages, throw Russell Wilson off. And they kind of did, but then you see it only takes one play, just heaved it up, and just blown coverage, I should say. They adjusted, and they started throwing them off a little bit, and then just takes one play to change it all around. So it's just tough to have takeaways from stuff like this. That's why it's kind of a weird game to have takeaways from. It's not the best outing from the Colts. They played a tough Seahawks team. They got a tough Rams team next week. It's a totally different matchup, though. And we'll see if they get Eric Fisher back. At some point, that'll be fantastic. You just need more. Both sides, you kind of just need more. You got pressure at times, too. You realize our defense really isn't that great in one-on-one coverage, so maybe a little bit too much of that. But I understand they were trying to switch things up. So it's more of questions and not questioning. Usually when you question something, it's like you doubt it a little bit. Not that. It's more we just have questions for the Colts based off this game. We got a lot of questions. What's going to happen going forward? What are they going to run on defense? Are their safeties okay? Will they be a lot better when Xavier Rhodes comes back? It should be. Offensively, can they develop explosive plays? Whose fault is the pressure? How much better will they be able to Fisher? When's he be back? They should be good. They should get Jonathan Taylor going. That's not really a question. They should get him going. So it's just kind of just question. And another thing, the Colts could run that quick small ball at Carson Wentz, and that could work pretty well. And that was working a little bit, but there's just not enough explosive plays, and that really couldn't finish the whole drive. And that kind of brings the question on the receivers. Without T.Y. Hilton, do they have the receiver? Should they have went out and got the receiver that could be a more explosive, get open in a hurry? So there's a lot of questions for the Colts after this game. Not doubts. No, definitely not a team to panic about. There's just things they'll be answered with weeks here, these next few weeks, I suppose. Week 2 could be weird too sometimes. Seahawks, really good game, I thought. Russell Wilson, it's just nothing surprising. Russell Wilson did his thing, understood what the defense was giving him, even though they switched it up. Chris Carson had a bad fumble at one point. Other than that, he ran pretty well. Lockett was sensational. I mean, the tracking was just the same. It's the same stuff. Lockett's the master of tracking the ball downfield. They got DK going then. Everett scored a touchdown his debut with Seahawks. It's just offensive line was kind of hot and cold. It's the same stuff. You know, they were kind of allowing instant pressure sometimes, but then they're kind of holding it down sometimes, giving Russell Wilson an opportunity to air the ball out deep. You know, it's similar stuff. They got more pressure than I expected them to. I knew the Colts offensive line, you know, they took a hit losing a guy to their unit with Costanzo, but the Seahawks ended up getting more pressure than I expected them to. You worry about the Seahawks corners. It didn't really show in this game, so it's just, I guess, still a question to be answered moving forward. It's just not a lot of giant takeaways. I went in a lot about the Colts, I guess, but not a lot of giant takeaways from this. It's a good win to start the year for the Seahawks. Chargers and Washington football team. This is one of those games where whoever lost this game, based on how it was unfolding, kind of choked it away. You know, it felt like Washington had this one. Gibson's fumble was pretty tough. He had a really good game, I thought, before that. Maybe not really good, pretty good game. And to before that, so that was tough. And then Fitzpatrick going down, that was tough. You know, you kind of left wondering, God, we probably should have won that game. Like if you're watching, we probably should have won that game. We had it. We were causing problems for the Chargers at times. You know, if our quarterback didn't get hurt, if Gibson didn't fumble, we won the game. So that's the way to look at that. You know, the Chargers side, they missed out on a lot of opportunities, and they could have won this game by a lot more. Even if Fitzpatrick stayed in, again, if Fitzpatrick stayed in, the Washington football team, the end result could have been Washington won. The Chargers, this is the same this is kind of the same old Chargers here. This team could be scary good. It could be really good. You see the moments, you see the flashes. They played a really good defensive game. And I think I can expect more from them on defense going forward, too. I could see more, you know. Herbert had some ridiculous plays. They should have scored a lot more points. And that's kind of the good thing. Like, all right, we won the game. We were kind of missing some opportunities. What it looked like on the field, to me, I think to most people, Chargers could have beat them up pretty good. And that's kind of a good thing. But it's kind of a bad thing at the same time because it's kind of like the classic Chargers missing out on the opportunities. You know, different coaching staff. It's a different team almost, you know, led by Justin Herbert. They still missed out on the opportunities. Like what happens when you play a better offensive team? You got to hit those. You got to complete. You got to finish those opportunities. You know, specifically had some drop balls. You know, I like this receiver unit overall. They had some drop balls. Keenan Allen was fine, obviously. Guyton dropped a touchdown early in a red zone trip, ended up being a field goal. Mike Williams dropped a touchdown at one point. He dropped, I think, 2 balls in that same series. One was a touchdown. It was a great throw by Herbert. And then they fumbled the ball for a touchback. Maybe I want to watch it again. I don't like when a guy throws the ball about 15 yards forward and it ends up being a fumble. Only the NFL. You know, great play by Montez Sweat. You know, so maybe I question that one. But either way, they missed out on some opportunities to just dominate this game. So it's like you see the potential. Great. They won the game. Great. They probably should have won by more. It's kind of a good thing. Like I said, it's kind of a bad thing. You know, will they kind of get out of that being the Chargers thing? And if they do, I mean, this team could be real good. It could be dangerous. Herbert was great. The interception was kind of bad. That's kind of going to, you know, it's kind of going to come with Herbert. He'll kind of have those plays. And we see Mahomes kind of do it. Mahomes tends to have his, you know, interceptions drop sometimes. But we see him. He has so much big play ability and takeover ability, clutch ability that, you know, that could happen sometimes. And it's not okay, but it's kind of okay. Herbert's got the same thing going for him. Red zone interceptions are worse than pretty much anything. You know, it's worse than throwing a pick six on your own end. You know, people will argue against that because the scoreboard won't really show it. But to me, you know, missing out on the opportunity and throwing an interception there is pretty bad. But he's just, you know, against pressure, throwing on the run, making tough throws. I mean, how smart he is kind of goes unnoticed. You know, when to throw the back shoulder, timing on throws. It was great. You know, just, you know, they probably should have scored more points. Eckler was good despite not really practicing. They used Roundtree more than expected. Receivers got to catch the ball. Offensive line was pretty solid. You know, Rashawn Slater's a beast. We see why I had him at tackle 1 for the draft. He's a beast. That was a great draft pick. They were fortunate they dropped to him. Defensively, it felt like Kenneth Murray was all over the field in a good way. Could expect more. I like him with Brandon Staley's defense. They didn't get a lot of pressure. Could expect more pressure, more quarterback hits going forward, so it's not really anything I'm worried about. It just felt like classic Chargers. Washington, Yeah, it was just a tough go. Fitzpatrick got hurt. Gibson fumbled. Curtis Samuel didn't play. McLaurin, they finally got him going. He was looking good when they got going. Maybe you expect a little more from their pass rush because this is supposed to be maybe the best defense in football. You expected a little more. Montez Sweat got in there. Jonathan Allen, maybe a little more from Chase Young. I'm not really too worried. I think they'll get going. They gave up more yards and more plays than the score will show. So defense will have to step up because I expect more out of them. But it's a game they could have won. Based on who outplayed who most of the game, I think the right team won. My take, but Washington definitely could have won that game. So we'll see. Short week with your quarterback out. You play the Giants. Should be a tough one, defensive one. It's tough. The way to start for Washington. Eagles alone at the top of that division. Jets and Panthers. It's kind of a good and a bad takeaway for the Panthers because it's similar to somewhat similar to the Chargers, what I just talked about. The Panthers dominated this game. They dominated this game. They really beat up the Jets. The score is not showing that. 19-14, the score is not showing that. So it's kind of a good and a bad thing because you outplayed your opponent by, if you take away the score and I kind of measured how much you outplay your opponent by, you outplay them by a lot. And that's always a good thing. But the score didn't really show it and why. I think missed opportunities. Darnold missed 2 wide open touchdowns. Overall, it's tough to say he had a great day because of that. He still has the accuracy problems. He put the ball on the ground that one time to another trip to the end zone. They put the ball on the ground, bad exchange on the handoff. And 2 missed. I don't know if I mentioned that. I think I just did. I'm jumbled up. 2 missed wide open passes in the end zone there. So missed opportunities to leave points up on the field. And you play the Jets, who are a mess. It's a young team that's not really a good team right now. They were messy in this game. Mekhi Becton getting hurt. What happens if the Panthers play a good team? They play the Saints next week, which I think could be a good game. So you got to finish, got to execute. Maybe they did get a little conservative at one point as well. Offensive line. So 2 things I really worried about going into the year for the Panthers was quarterback play and offensive line, and I think that kind of still there after week 1 because I knew they had playmakers. Receivers are great. They got the running back. The defensive, they got playmakers everywhere. They're improving. They're young. They're solid. They fly around to the ball, make plays. Darnold had good moments. He ran in for a touchdown. That bomb to Robbie Anderson was good. Just still moments that were bad on him that left points on the field. But he got pressured a ton. He got hit a bit. So the offensive line you worry about as well. It's just, again, the good is they dominated this game. They dominated this game really on both sides of the ball until they had to finish on offense. So the bad is kind of like some other teams we talked about, they got to execute, they got to finish because when they play a better team, how is it going to be? You're going to have to finish. So that's kind of my takeaways for the Panthers. I think Hassan Reddick looked good. Got a couple guys after the quarterback over there. Sam Darnold beat his old team. It's good stuff. The Jets, the offensive line's supposed to be improved. Didn't look like it. Didn't help that Mekhi Becton went down. Zach Wilson was pressured, was hit. Zach Wilson's interception was pretty bad. Other than that, he does a good job throwing on the run, making the wild play. Corey Davis, we thought he would have a pretty good year. He's a top target. Sure looks to be the case. They were close on a couple bigger plays too, so they could have that explosive play. I expect a little more. I expect a little more scoring in this game. But again, offense line's rough. It's rough that Becton got hurt. No running game, which we kind of figured might happen. It's tough once you get to the NFL. Could work in college. When you get to the NFL, you got to have some sort of running game. Again, it doesn't need to start. You don't need to start with the running game. Some teams insist that you have to do that. Doesn't need to be the case there. Defense, they just need more. It's a young team. Injuries, hurt them as well. They kind of need more, but they got more pressure than you expect them to. We're going against the best offensive line though, but it's still a work in progress for the Jets. Panthers got to finish. They dominated this game. They got to finish. That's kind of my takeaways there. Jags and Texans. The Texans beat their ass. The score won't show it there. The score will show it, but it won't show as much as it was, actually. That's how I should put it. Tyrod Taylor carved up the Jaguars. That's what happened. Brandon Cooks, people forget how good, how dominant he could be. You just got to stay healthy. He's dominant this game. Explosive. So good. Underrated player. Just got to stay healthy. And on the defensive side, Christian Kirksey, always known as a good linebacker, just always hurt. He played a pretty good game too. I talked about, I didn't think the Texans would do this. I thought about picking them in this game, but I didn't think they would do this. But I talked about it all offseason. They're pretty deep, and that could come in handy. I thought it came in handy. All right, Mark Ingram's the guy. That's kind of the storyline here. What running back's going to be the guy? Only week 1, but it's Mark Ingram so far, it looks like. In a pretty good game from that running group. Tyrod Taylor did a sensational job escaping pressure, buying time, throwing on the run, explosive plays. I guess the question is, will that happen on everyone else? They kind of heaved some balls up, jump ball, came down with pretty much all of them. Will that, things like that, not just that, happen against other teams? That's kind of the question. You got there to win, a team they're familiar with beating. Can they beat other teams? At the end of the day, that would be the question. People will still doubt them. At the end of the day, I think, can't base it off week 1. I think they're better than people thought. I think they're deep. The depth helps more than people think. And they game plan pretty well for this game. So the coaching staff deserves some credit. I Tyrod Taylor played well there too. Trying to think if I'm forgetting before I rip the Jaguars. This is where I'm going to rip on the Jaguars. This is person. It's not one person. It's one group's fault and one group's fault only. Forget about the Lawrence 3 interceptions. He threw 3 interceptions. That's not good. I'm going to forget about it. Week 1, first game. I'm going to forget about it. Who we're blaming is the entire Jacksonville Jaguars staff. Awful. Just awful. I get mad when teams kind of handle things, or staffs handle things the wrong way. They get Urban Meyer. I like it because Urban Meyer understands talent. He's going to come in there, bring in the best talent. I can't fully judge him yet. It's only been one offseason, a long way to go. It's kind of a rebuild. It's kind of a process, trust the process team. But they don't really go out and get the best players in free agency in the draft. They go for the most versatile players. And I've been talking about that all offseason. That's not good. You don't win with the most versatile. You win with the best players, the best roster. And that showed in this game. Also, guys look out of place. Look like they weren't coached up this game. That's bad. On top of that, offensively, man, they refused to run the ball. I knew this would be a pass-first team. I'm fine with being a pass-first team. They refused to run the ball, and then they get down by a lot of points. And, okay, we'll run the ball now and run the clock. And what? Like, I don't understand. I don't understand the thinking. And they still didn't. It's not like they ran it a ton then. They still didn't run it enough. But defense is a guessing game. You got to predict a lot of things. You made it predictable. Texans will just game plan for the pass. They're not running the ball. We'll continue to game plan for the pass. Now we're up big. We can do whatever the hell we want now. We're up big. They're probably going to pass the majority of the time still because that's what they do when they're down. It just made it very easy for the Houston Texans of all teams. It made it very easy. So all around terrible job by the staff. Lawrence didn't play a good game. I'm not, he threw 3 interceptions. He's a bust. No, not even close. So I'm not one of those. Defense, sometimes in week 1, and the defense was out of place, poorly coached. They weren't prepared, so it should get better if they fix that. And sometimes in week 1, some things will look bad that's not actually the case, or they'll look good that's not actually the case. Jaguars defense looked really, really bad. But unfortunately, I think that's the case. I kind of thought that in the offseason. So it's going to have a rough go. Overall, it's not the end of the world because the Jaguars are still a work in progress. They could still go out and add the talent and kind of complete their team. But it wasn't good. That is a pretty bad way to start the year against the Texans. The Texans started the year so poorly last year, and that's what I thought put them in the hole. I thought that made them worse than what they actually were because they started in the hole playing really tough teams, and they weren't good, so don't get me wrong. But they put up some fights with some good teams. This year they start with this dominant win. I know it's the Jaguars. Overall, it's positivity here for the Texans. Different matchup, totally different matchup against the Browns. And I'm not talking about talent. It's just a totally different type of matchup. So that's going to be fun to see what they got for us. And speaking of the Browns and Chiefs, another one of those where it's, it's like good and bad for the Browns. They lost the game. That's bad. But the Browns outplayed their opponent, who happens to be the best team in the AFC, to maybe the team to beat in the NFL. Perhaps. They outplayed them. They looked pretty good. They can hang with this team. They had bright moments. That's the good. The Browns can play. They're not a joke. They're going to be a good team. That's the good. The bad is, how do you lose this game? It's a game they should win. They choke it away. Too many mistakes. Nick Chubb has a good day. He ends up fumbling. The punt situation was bad. Baker threw that last interception. He was trying to. I understand what he was trying to do. He still threw the interception. He still made a decision. Didn't put it in the right spot. He was trying to get out of bounds. But Baker had a sensational game before that. So just executing, finishing, it kind of brings up that label as the Browns. Which I'm not gonna do that. I'm not sitting here say they lost the game. They started turning the ball over because the Browns. But it really brings up overall big picture. Can they finish games against top teams? That's what's going to bring up. That's what the debate will be. And most people will say no because of that. And it's a legitimate question. Will they be able to do it down the stretch in the bigger game? You're in Kansas City. You played a heck of a game for the most part, and you lost. So that's obviously not ideal. Jedrick Wills goes down. That's not ideal. Offensive line still plays good though. And Ronnie Harrison got kicked out. That hurt them a little bit. A couple big plays they were in position to make. There was one that Mahomes just threw it up to Tyreek Hill. He ended up scoring on. That shouldn't even be completed, let alone touchdown. John Johnson was there to make the play, just didn't get his head around. So little things like that. We'll see if they can fix it because they definitely improved their team for sure. It's just a game they should win. So that's overall the negative. Chiefs. I guess there's positive, negative there too because you got outplayed most of the game. There wasn't much going early in the game, offensively, I suppose. I guess very early. But mainly, are they going to have to score 33 points or more every game and hope the team, if it's a good team like the Browns, hope they turn the ball over to win the game because their defense can't hold anybody. That. It's a question. Tyrann Mathieu was out. It was pretty big. Odell was out for the Browns. Pretty big. Tyrann Mathieu is a huge, not having him out there. It's pretty huge. So you worry about the Chiefs defense a little bit. Lack of pass rush. It was the Browns offensive line, but you may be playing the Browns offensive line in a big game down the stretch. So, but overall, you end up getting a win. I guess the negative / positive is you got outplayed. You still found a way to come back and win the game. So you can play. They can play better than that. In terms of the entire game, they still won the game against a good team. So overall, it's a positive. Great comeback from Mahomes. Offensive line, we've been talking about how improved it is, and they're going to be able to do more with it. Definitely think that's the case still. I guess speed, quickness, kind of get off on the outside could be the negative. I think when we saw Myles Garrett, Clowney, just really get off and burst. That is more of the speed could be the concern. I'm not overly concerned, but just something I noticed. But way to clutch up for the Chiefs there in that game. You're still able to win that game. That's pretty huge. Dolphins and Patriots. Another one of those games where it's like whoever lost this game kind of blew it. They kind of choked it away just based on how the game was going, and that ended up being the case. The Dolphins, I felt like, controlled most of this game. And that roughing the passer call was pretty terrible. That ended up being 7 instead of 3. 3 attempt. The Patriots. So at that point, I was thinking, man, it's going to be tough if the Dolphins lose the game because we know it's going to be close because that should not have happened. The Dolphins ended up winning the game. I know they controlled most of this game, but then looking specifically at the end, it felt like the Patriots should have won this game. And that's why I say no matter who lost this game, it's going to feel like the other team should have won the game. That team blew the game. So if it was reversed, I would be saying the same thing. But it's just one of those games, kind of like Chargers-Washington game. Patriots kind of had it. Damian Harris overall had a good day, like I expect him to. He can't fumble there. It's a tough fumble. And the Dolphins is a playmaking defense. They make play. It's a good defense that makes plays when the time is right. They can give up some big plays on the ground. We know that. Those will be some throws as well. Oh, they won't really give anything too big up downfield. But they set up and make plays. It's that same defense as last year that won them games. The defense can go out there and win them games. That's kind of this concern, though. The defense is going to go out there and have to win them games like that. Tua had his moments, but overall I was not pleased with his play. He had that bad interception that, that's just kind of – he had another one of those that didn't get caught. So he's kind of fortunate there. It's kind of just Tua mentality, just throw the ball up, and pray. So I don't really like that. Honestly, I was figuring to blame the offensive line more, but the Patriots, Belichick lines up with so many different looks, weird things where it's like guaranteed pressure. Is this a blitz? What the hell is it? And I thought the Dolphins offensive line didn't play great, but I thought for who they are, they held that down, I thought, pretty well, so that wasn't really the reason that, those weird plays were happening. They have the weapons. They got to go out there and score more points. They got to go out there and execute, make smarter plays. It's only week 1, so they definitely can do that. I wish they had a little more of a running game. Not that it was terrible, but just a defensive game. It was weird, though, because Mac Jones played pretty well. Like, it felt like they could have went out there and scored more points, and I guess if Damian Harris didn't go fumble, then they probably would have scored more points. Trent Brown got hurt. We're kind of used to that, but that's unfortunate. But offensive line played well. The Dolphins draw up some good blitzes and make plays when the time's right. I don't have too many takeaways. I thought both defenses played very well. It's one of those games where it's like the Patriots should have won. They blew the game away, but the Dolphins were deserving of winning the game at the same time. If it flipped, it'd be the same thing. It's like, sounds like that shouldn't be possible, but some games are like that. So that's my takeaway. The questions are, will the Patriots will they unleash Mac Jones a little more? I don't expect Damian Harris to fumble those balls, so will they go out there and win? Dolphins, can the offense win the game? Not just the defense, can the offense win the game? Will the defense continue to be that playmaking defense that it looks like it could be? Some questions, I guess, moving forward, just based off week 1. Yeah, I don't know how this happened. The Saints won 38-3 against the Packers, the Green Bay Packers. I think this was the game where everyone's like, finally like, okay, he's serious about the week 1's weird thing because the Packers, it takes a team like the Packers for people to think that. But I'm, kind of backing off a little bit, because this means something here. The Saints go out and win 38-3 against the Packers. That means something. That it definitely means something. That the Saints just played a hell of a game here, and I'm glad I got hyped on them very late leading in the offseason, because this is a dangerous team here. I was kind of getting hyped on the idea of Jameis Winston on the Saints because they couldn't really get the big explosive plays going downfield. They're able to do that, so it's a whole different Saints team. It's tough to game plan against. And we saw that the game plan was the difference, and it was a 38-3 difference there, and the guys going out and executing on top of it. So Jameis Winston played a great game, got the ball in the end zone, made smart decisions, which we're not really used to, I suppose. Credit to the staff here, and credit to Jameis improving, which is hard to do at that point in your career. And we'll see if that continues to be the case. It's only week 1, but I'm feeling pretty good. So they did a good job. Jawan Johnson goes out there, moving the tight end. And plays an incredible game. Some guys on our radar now, maybe for fantasy. Defensively, they got they didn't get a crazy amount of pressure, but they got it in the right moments. I thought. Davenport played pretty well. He ended up getting hurt. Cam Jordan ended up getting was it a fourth down that I can't remember. Everything's kind of a mix here. Cam Jordan ended up getting key pressure. I can't remember if it was the interception or a fourth down stop. It was one of the two. They clutched up there. The Saints were very tight in coverage. They made plays. They got 2 interceptions on Aaron Rodgers. It's probably Aaron Rodgers' worst game of his career. The Saints kind of created that. The worst game I can remember for Aaron Rodgers, I'd say. So I'm not really going to panic. It wasn't really good, though. Devontae, a lot of people are saying Devontae Adams got shut down. They were pretty sticky in coverage. They were tight on him in coverage. I thought they shut down Rodgers. I thought Devontae Adams had a step on guys at times, and there could have been bigger plays. We saw one play, Rodgers, right before half, they got the 3, Rodgers, Devontae Adams, a classic, looked great. But I think it was more on Rodgers. He was throwing behind targets like Adams a bit, so that was pretty tough. They just kind of didn't play their game. But Rodgers kept saying it's just one game. That's kind of what it is. So you can't really – it means something when you get beat 38-3, but you can't just say the Packers suck now because of that, and the Saints are winning the Super Bowl now because of that. But it means something. I'm going to keep saying that, but – the Packers will be good at the end of the day, and the Saints will continue to be good at the end of the day. Great job, that coaching staff, getting that team ready for this game like they always do, prepared. They found the right ways to open, a lot of blown coverages for the Packers, too. It's a new defensive staff, too, so you don't really know what to expect, and it felt like the Saints knew what to expect. So that got to credit the staff for sure, the adjustments on the fly. And just being able to do it without guys like Michael Thomas, David Onyemata, all the guys they lost during offseason, so Packers possibly get a nice turnaround playing the Lions there. Saints play the Panthers. That actually is an interesting game too, so I'm looking forward to that. It's a big win for the Saints. Broncos and Giants. Score won't show the domination of the Broncos in this game, and we know the Giants scored last second, so it was really kind of feel like it was really 27-7. And that won't even show, in my opinion, based on what I watched, that the Broncos dominated this game even further than that. Broncos, and they got to limit the mistakes maybe in the red zone. And I guess there was just one fumble. Ended up being Judy one got reversed. Judy's injury looked pretty bad. It didn't end up being as bad, but I guess that's something to monitor. Overall, we expected the Broncos defense to go out there and play well. We expected that, and that's what happened. So I don't really have, actually I thought they would get more sacks, but I think they got enough pressure, disruption plays, tight coverage, big-time stops. So credit them there. It's exactly what we kind of expected. Focusing on the offense. You're playing a good defense in the Giants, what we expect to be a good defense. The Broncos, and that's why I say the Broncos beat them way more than the score showed, is they move the ball. They move the ball. It almost feels like a sneaky 100 and top of my head 46. It actually might have been exactly 146 between Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. A sneaky because no one's really talking about it. And you don't really expect it. It's a lot of yards for two running backs against the Giants defense. They threw the ball well. Teddy had a lot of risky moments. All right, what is he doing? Holding the ball too long. Yeah, when he decided to get out of the pocket, when he decided to stay in, step up in the pocket. He kind of did it. There was times where it wasn't necessarily good because it's not really what you're supposed to do, but he was clutching up, making the plays at the same time. I saw quite a bit of those. Receivers step up throughout the whole depth chart. KJ Hamler dropped a touchdown. They also had a fumble in the red zone. So they left plays out in the field. So it could have been even more of a dominant win. So they can't let that happen against better offensive teams that could put some points up on the board. So it's another one of those storylines, I guess. But overall, a dominant win. Against a good defense, they made a good defense look not too good. And that's the Broncos offense we're talking about. What people didn't expect a lot from. That's a pretty good sign. It's week one though. Maybe the Giants defense was just off their game. It's week one, so you can't put too much stock in it. But overall, it's pretty dominant performance. The Giants, it's just the same old stuff, except the defense was pretty. It was actually bad in this game. If you didn't watch the game, or maybe you wouldn't know, they scored 27 points. You didn't expect the Broncos to score 27 points. But if you didn't watch the game, Giants defense actually wasn't good. Overall, it's the same story though. It's just like where I get mad with the Giants. Like it's only one game, so I can't say this is for sure, but it's. And I'm not basing all of this one game, though. I've been saying this all along. They go out and they refuse to make the spots that need to be made better. They refuse to. Let's go add more receivers. Let's go. And Sterling Shepard was great, and he was obviously already on the team. Kenny Golladay, the new addition, was pretty solid. Saved an interception from Daniel Jones. It was a bad throw there. He made a nice contested catch. But they go out and just keep adding corners and keep adding safeties and keep adding receivers, and it's like, what about the quarterback? What about the offensive line? What about the edge rush? Three of the most important things in football, and that showed in this game. And usually, just because something showed in one game, I'm not going to just say, oh, okay, that's the problem. But it was more than the one game. It's kind of been the problem. I've been saying it. Quarterback isn't good. There's not enough explosive plays. He turns the ball over. He's got a fumbling problem. You try to be careful with him so he doesn't throw more interceptions, and that just doesn't get the job done. You don't get enough points. The offensive line allows too much pressure to make his job harder. You don't go out and make the offensive line better when you had opportunities to make both better. The defense is good. They have guys that can get pass rush like Leonard Williams, who plays 3-4 defensive end, but who do they have as an edge in terms of edge rush? I do like picking up Aguilar. He could be great, but they kind of ignore that spot. It's just a poor job in the front office, and that's what happened here. That's kind of what happened. So it's just a Giants type of day here, but actually not really though, because the defense wasn't good. It surprised me a little bit. It allowed way more than it should against the Broncos offense. Maybe it was a fluky game for the Giants defense. Maybe it was a fluky game for the Broncos offense. Maybe it's true. That's kind of going to continue the rest of the year. It's just week one things. We still have questions. Next up, Bears and Rams, Sunday Night Football. This one's weird. It's kind of funny because I predicted this. We do our weekly picks. We always say what game's going to be an ass beating. I said I locked this in my ass beating of the week. The Rams beating the Bears. The Rams, I had my score. If you watch my score predictions, I had the Rams winning 30-17. So what does that tell you? It tells me, and hear me out, it tells me I was right about the ass beating, and they won by more than I thought they would win. My point is I don't know if I was really right. It didn't feel like that much of an ass beating. It didn't need to be. That's what I want to say. It didn't need to be this bad for the Bears. It did not need to be this bad. I expect the Rams to win big. They did, but I didn't really expect to go down a whole lot like that. And why I say that, the Bears moved the ball. If you didn't watch the game, you look at the score 14. They moved the ball pretty easily, believe it or not, pretty easily. and they just couldn't finish. They couldn't execute. Dalton, to start the game, 2 plays, and they were inside the 15-yard line, whatever it was, the Rams. And then they put Justin Fields in. I want Justin Fields to play. I want him to be the starter. The Bears would be better with him. But you just got 2 plays. You just got down there. You're going to go put a quarterback in, or 3, end up being 3 plays, whatever. Throw a little dink and dunk pass. Doesn't do much. Dalton comes back in. False start. About to get a delay of game. Got to take a stupid timeout. Interception. Bad throw. It got tipped. Sometimes people say it gets tipped. It's not really a bad interception. It was a bad interception. So that wasn't good. And that kind of just changed the whole game. Blown coverage. Stafford way to start it for the Rams. Gets that deep ball, which we were expecting a little bit of that. I knew the Bears defense take a step down, and it's to be determined. It's only been week 1, but they were pretty bad. That defense, the offense, the score was 34. The Bears scored 14 points, but I'm telling you, the offense was a lot better than their defense. If you watch the game, the defense was bad. It was just bad. No pressure from Khalil Mack. Really none from Robert Quinn. Coverage was pretty terrible. One-on-ones from no matter who it was, their linebackers, the safeties, the corners. Missed tackles all over the place. They forgot to touch the guy down on the Rams' first possession. Van Jefferson shouldn't have fell down. He fell down. He just got up, went for a touchdown because the Bears forgot they got to touch him down. Maybe just week 1 mistakes. Defense was bad, though. That's the storyline there. Offensively, though, they moved the ball. And they moved the ball too easy for the Rams' defense. And, you kind of wonder, no Brandon Staley, is the defense going to be worse? I didn't think Donald played a good game. Donald was whiffing on a lot of plays. He ended up getting a sack late. It's not like him. So there's things that were just not like the Rams' defense, so you think it could get better. But is this the new Rams defense without Staley? I'm going to say no. I think they'll be a good defense still and be better, and they'll be better because I think the Bears were moving the ball pretty well because I talked about before week 1, there's sometimes offenses play way better than expected and they end up looking way better than they actually are early because it has to do with the dink and dunk, quick, fast offense early that gives defenses problem. And that's kind of what this case was. Defense was clutching up in right moments. Jalen Ramsey clutching up. They got the interception. Kenny Young forced it. But it was just so quick. And what teams need to do, the Rams against that, is play more press man, get physical because they're just going 2 yards and quick slant, whatever it may be. If you do that, they won't be open. The quarterback won't be able to throw it, causes problems, causing a sack. So it's a simple fix for the Rams and other teams there, but it was what the Bears needed to do. The offense was good. I think that if they continue to run that offense, it'll get exposed. But it's what they need to do with what they have. And overall, it was good. I thought Dalton did, besides the interception, I thought he did it. He didn't do anything wow. He wasn't asked to do anything hard. But he was getting the ball out quickly, pretty quick. They kept sneaking Fields in there. Finally ran him and he scored. I was calling for them to run him. They did that when they scored. And they'd be better with Fields because it gives you more. You're not sticking in that small ball, quick offense. So we'll see when they put Fields in for as the starter, not just like a 2-quarterback system. Montgomery was pretty good, breaking a lot of tackles. He had a pretty, again, they were gaining on offense. They should have scored more points. Some pretty damn bad play calling and decisions from Matt Nagy in co there. They went for a 4th and 15 at one point. Like you couldn't throw the ball more than 5 yards the whole game. Then at that point, instead of a field goal, you thought you were going to do it. Questionable. The offensive line, people were saying the offensive line didn't play well. They're already beat up as it was, and Peters got hurt, and then Borum got hurt, the backup. I thought they played pretty well given the circumstances. They were opening up holes in the running game as well. I don't think the offensive line was a problem at all. Could it be a problem going forward because of the injuries and the tackle play? Sure. I'm not really worried about the interior, but I didn't think it was a problem in this game. Play calling, kind of decision making from the coaches, and defense was kind of the problem for the Bears. Surprisingly, Rams. Yeah, you see why they bring Stafford in there. It's just a whole different ball game. It's kind of like the Bucs last year too, where they kind of had to gain the chemistry, a whole new offense, Tom Brady led offense, or change some things. That could be the case. So they actually get better with time, which most teams do. Not a surprise. We see the collection of weapons show up. Robert Woods was great. Toe tap back of the end zone was great. Henderson ran the ball well. Didn't see much of Michelle. I think it's just the Rams. I think we'll see more Michelle as season goes on. The receiver Stafford, great. What happens when you take away, if teams don't blow coverages, though, which you created that with the arm, with the talent, you created that. So definitely Rams credit there. What happens if you can't get those crazy explosive plays on blown coverage, though? Can you work down the field? Because we didn't really see the working down the field to the very end. I think they can. But it's a couple of big plays away from being a close game. This game could have been a lot closer, than it needed to be here. But Rams are going to be a real good team. We see that. The defense didn't play good. They got way more than it was showed. I'm not really too worried about, though. They'll need to get physical, and when they play offenses like that, it tends to happen early in the season. Defenses don't get physical enough. Those types of offense can move the ball. Not worried about it. Just something to watch out for here. So that's my takes on that game. Ended up being the score, again, around the range where I predicted, but I thought it happened a little different way. So I thought that was weird, unique, I guess. One more game, the Monday night game, Ravens-Raiders. We'll be talking a lot about that on Twitter. There won't be a recap for it because we got a lot of content to get to for week 2. As soon as the game's over, week 2. But really, there's a recap thoughts on Twitter as the game goes on and right after as well. So make sure you check that out. Link down below. These videos are always way too long. I'm losing my voice. Subscribe, turn notifications on, and follow that Twitter. Very, very important. Appreciate everyone's support lately. Been awesome. We got over 75K. Appreciate you guys very much. Thanks for watching this video. It's going to do it. Goodbye.